Hi, this is Patricia Stepp with Your Inside Power. And I want to give you a quote today because this is going to be key for not only today's show, but also for next week's show. And is from our Buckminster Fuller. And he said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." Now, in last week's show, we talked about the elephant in the room, and we kept saying that, it's our habits. And it's those habits that control us, just like an elephant in a circus that's been trained that when this chain is on it, it can only go maybe 10 feet. And then after it's been trained, they just put the chain on. They don't chain it to anything. And it still only believes it can go 10 feet. Well, that's the way your mind is. We have these beliefs, we have these ideas, we have these thoughts, we have these behaviors and actions, and they all go back to habits, because 95 to up to 98% of your day is what scientists have determined is controlled by habitual actions. Wow, it's a lot, isn't it? And we think, right? So recently I was reading in this book I just picked up, and it was talking about the reality and how the reality is what society norms are. The reality is what is in your vision. So you have to start thinking everything that you have in your home, everything that you've acquired, the position you have at work, whatever it is, you have turned that into a reality. And what happens is we all have this like thermostat inside us, just like our heat pumps or furnaces have a thermostat. We too have a thermostat. And our thermostat shows that when we go to do something different, it's in conflict with our subconscious mind. And so when that happens, that thermostat tries to bring us back to where we were. Just as the thermostat in your house, if it gets cold, and you have it set at 70 degrees, but now it's 67 degrees, it kicks on until it gets to 70 degrees and it turns off. Well, we have a very similar automated system inside of us. And that system actually keeps us stuck. Okay. So to build new habits and thoughts in our minds, we have to clear a new path. We have to do something different, just like our Buckminster Fuller said. You cannot change the model. You've got to build a new model that makes the current model obsolete. That's what you have to do. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but more about that in next week's show, when we're really going to get into changing that model. But we have to realize that we have to create a new pathway. You see what happens. You step out to do something different. Consciously, you know you can do it. You know you are capable. You know you have the potential. You know you have the ability. And you've seen other people do it. So if they can do it, you can do it. And so you step out to do something differently. Unfortunately, that very idea slams into your existing habitual actions, or our paradigms, our thoughts, group of thoughts that we have stored in our subconscious mind. It hits them and it says, no, you can't. Who do you think you are? You're not good enough. You're too old. You're too young. You're too not educated enough. You're overeducated. Whatever it is, it slams right into that thought process that we have. And then we don't do anything. It keeps us absolutely stuck. So we have to realize that we have to create new patterns of belief. And those patterns that we have can then put us on autopilot. There's a really great article, and if you're interested in it, just reach out to me. It's talking about the common denominators of success. And the common denominators of success are that successful people will do what unsuccessful people won't do. It's not that they're not able to do them or they're not capable of doing them. They just choose not to do them for whatever reason. And it's not that successful people like doing those things any more than an unsuccessful person does, but they're looking at the outcome they want, and their focus is on the outcome they want. So they do what they feel is uncomfortable or they do not like until, now get this, until it becomes a habit. And once it's a habit, they just do it. So that's what we have to do. We have to turn things into habits. Why? Because habits, as much as we may talk about how they're not good for us, habits are very good for us when they become automatic and it's serving us well. So when you take something you don't want to do and you do it until it becomes a habit because it will get you to the goal that you want, that's a good habit. When we have habits that are not serving us well, then those are the ones we want to change. And we don't just work on them. We have to build a new model that makes the current habit obsolete. Okay. So the subconscious mind, here's the beauty. The subconscious mind does not know the difference between real and imagined. So how do we start building that new habit? We start seeing ourselves doing something different. We start seeing ourselves being somebody different. You can never outperform the image you hold of yourself. To change your image, you have to build a new model, right? So if you want to do something that's far above where you are today, you cannot get there with the same thinking, the same actions, the same behaviors, everything that you are today. You have got to change. Change is uncomfortable, and your body and your mind will fight you like crazy when you step out to make a change. But keep in mind, that's the only way it's going to happen. You cannot reach to a dream that is a lot higher than where you are being the person you are today. It just doesn't work. And you can think about being that person as much as you want, but if you do not become that person first, you will not reach it. Now, that may be a harsh reality. I just want to tell you the truth. I just want to speak the truth for you, because when we don't see ourselves achieving that goal, it becomes very frustrating. When in reality, we could have achieved it had we just been willing to change. So here's what I want you to realize. When you start to change, this is what happens, and this is so beneficial. And, I know I probably shared this before, but my mother had dementia. She just passed a couple months ago, and she had dementia so bad. So, she didn't know who I was for probably the last year and a half of her life. She did not know me. For a while, she would recognize me. And when I would tell her my name, there'd be some recollection, but she did not know that I was her daughter. In fact, she didn't believe I could be her daughter. I was way too old to be her daughter, because she probably was thinking she was about my age, right? So my point is, I don't want to have dementia. And if there's anything I can do to try to prevent it, I'm going to do it. Well, when you start reading about brain science, and I don't know if this will help anybody from dementia, please, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just reading things and interpreting what I'm reading. But if there's anything you can do to help create your brain so it doesn't start to shrivel up, I'm going to try it. So anyhow, that's just a disclaimer here. I don't know if this will work. I'm just saying I'm working on this because I don't want to go through what my mom did. So there's thoughts that if you keep doing certain things, you will keep increasing your brain power. So what happens to most people? Well, most people get to a point in their life, maybe 40, 50, maybe 60, maybe 70, maybe 80. I don't know, when they just kind of keep things the way it is. Well, when you do that, you're not building any new neurons in your brain. But if you keep learning new things, you do. Now, thinking of my mom, my grandfather, her father, he was always reading things. He was always keeping his mind active. He was always learning new things. As he got older, I mean, his body started to give out. He lived to be about 94, but as he, but his mind was still pretty good, but he was always learning new things. My mom didn't do that. She did to a point, but then she stopped. So if we learn new things, we create these neurons in our brain. And when we have those neurons, then when we continue to keep learning new things and keep connecting them and keep doing those new things over and over, we're building pathways in our brain. So if we're building those pathways, and the more we utilize them, we make them stronger. And hopefully that as we keep improving that, they become better. So my challenge for you, I was going to say goal, but it's not really a goal, it's a challenge, is to keep learning new things, even when it becomes frustrating. Because I remember, this was a number of years ago, when I first started, I was still teaching at this time as an educator, and I was just starting to learn some things on the computer. And I would take some different classes, how to do things on a computer, how to be creative and so on. And I'll never forget this one class I took. And this was back when you used disk, okay, in your computers. And so I had a disk and they had this label on it. Well, the label on mine was affecting how it was being read. Like the label wasn't quite right. And so it was interfering with, I guess, the laser in there or whatever reads the disc. And so I was falling behind. Like we were supposed to open this and we were supposed to do this. And I'm like, I can't even get my stupid disc to open for me. And I started to get, and when I start to get to a point where I don't understand something, I just want to cry. I get overwhelmed and frustrated, and like I couldn't do anything about it. And I couldn't get the intention of the instructor to come over and help me. They just thought I was doing something wrong. It wasn't me. It was the disc was a little faulty. And then later on, when I started my own business and started social media, and it just wasn't my thing. And it was very frustrating, to start to get onto social media and to understand it. And it's still frustrating. But, at those times, you have to learn from them. And we have two choices when we get overwhelmed and frustrated like that. We can either say, okay, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Or we can, this is what I generally do, take a step back, take a deep breath, and, maybe even walk away from the situation for a little bit and then come back and figure it out. Now, which one's going to build new neurons in your brain? Not the first way. When you give up, you're done. But when you make a decision and you keep going, now you're building a new pathway and you're building new things, and pretty soon you learn it. I share this story sometimes when I'm working with a client or even in a talk. My daughter, my middle child, was in a pretty intensive computer field. And when she'd come home from college, there'd be times I would say to her, hey, Renee, can you help me figure this out? And she'd get on there, and her idea of figuring out or helping me was different than mine. I wanted her to show me step by step so I could write it down and have it. So then when she'd get back to college, I'd still know how to do it. I was too slow for that. So she would tend to eventually just take over and do it for me. Well, that didn't help me at all. Well, believe it or not, that was not that many years ago. And today, while she has her program she knows, I have my programs and I don't ask her things anymore because she has no more idea what I'm doing than I do about what she's doing. And she can't help me anymore. Same thing my husband used to help me with. He can't help me anymore. In fact, he'll say to me, you know more than I do. Oh, it didn't used to be that way. But you see, I've had to learn. So I just want to get across to you, you have to build a new model. If I had not built a model of myself, and this is why I tell people, I used to think I couldn't do it. And now what I've learned is if I learn one software or I learn one thing, I can learn another thing. And that's what you have to do. You have to realize you can learn anything, but you have to go into it with the right attitude. Instead of going into it with I can't do it, you go into it with, well, this may be difficult, but I figured out this and I figured out that. I can figure out this one too. So whatever you're doing, you have to flip that switch of the possibility that you can do it and go on and start it. And then you have to have a big enough why. You know, why is this important to you? Why is learning that important? And we have to decide what is our belief system there. What are our behaviors? You see, in this book I've been reading, there are certain fixed things that society has established as norms. And believe me, I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying they're established and we try to fit into them. And when we don't fit into them, it can cause chaos, which I'm thinking about right now. There's a lot of chaos going on because we have society norms, but not everybody's following them. And that can cause chaos. So what we have to realize is that, while there are things fixed, those fixed things can also lead to limiting beliefs because we've had these fixed ideas about who we are and what we can do. And as long as we stay with them, it becomes very fixed in us. So we have to start to realize that, maybe we have to go outside of our comfort zone and look at those limiting beliefs. So when we do that, well, how do we do that? We have to start thinking of dreaming and seeing the possibilities. What would it be like if this really could happen? What would it be like if I could do this? What would it do to my life? And start imagining that. You see, we all have this wonderful gift we've been given. Human beings have been given this beautiful gift of an imagination. But if we don't use it, we might as well not even have it. And so we have to learn to use our beautiful imagination. And when we do that, when we start dreaming about what the possibilities are, it changes our brain and it changes that wiring. And when you can get that idea and start really, really focusing on it, and you start to plant it in your subconscious mind, and you've built that new model, so you now believe you can do it. You see, when you have that new model built in your subconscious mind of yes, I can, instead of no, I can't, and you've gotten rid of those limiting beliefs, now you can build a new pathway. And when you build that new pathway, things start to happen. So I want you to really think about this, is what can you do to visualize your dream? And when you write your goal down, and I suggest doing this, paper and pen, write your goal down of what it is that you want to do so that you can start making that vision board and creating it. And then what we have to do is we have to start focus. We must focus on what it is we want. So often we allow things we don't want to get in the way. So when something comes across that's not going to help us and not get us to where we want to be, we have to say, nope, not today, not doing that, not playing that game, and start to focus on what we want. which will eliminate chasing all those shiny objects. Last year, about this time, I guess I was doing a summit, and it was called Stop Chasing Shiny Objects, because I notice a lot of people chase shiny objects. They go after what's new and great, and over here, what's new and great, and then over here, and then over here. And they just keep chasing, and they never focus on what it is that they want. So when we can start to focus on our vision and build those goals, it'll start changing our action. Because remember, action's controlled by the subconscious mind. So that's where we need to really start our focus. Meditation is great. The visualization as you meditate, as you relax into that alpha state of mind and get, allow those brain waves to slow down a little so that you're really allowing those ideas to come into your mind. And when you do that, your ability to focus gets better. And also it builds your optimism, because you start to think, yeah, there's no reason why I can't have that. There's no reason why I can't do that. There's no reason why I can't be that person. And you start to see the possibilities. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is, we know we have to exercise our bodies, right? We know that that keeps us healthy and it keeps us moving. And whether it's just doing yoga, or whether it's walking, or whether it's lifting weights, or, something more strenuous, or playing a sport, we know that that's good for our bodies. But you also have to exercise your mind. And this is where so many people fall short. And I know, so let me give you an example. I've been working on this really big project, and I really wanted to have it done by today. It's not going to happen, but by the weekend it should be finished. But as I did that and was so concentrated on tasks that need to be done, I let go of some of my visualization, which is my exercising of the mind. Now, I didn't let go of my exercising of my body. I walk every morning. And so I did that, but I let go a bit of the exercising of the mind. Now, sometimes I, put my earbuds in and, exercise my mind as I'm walking. It's not quite as effective that way. It still works somewhat, because that message is still getting in there. My point is, I could see a difference. I could see a difference in how I felt and how I believed about what was going to happen, and so on and so forth. You must exercise your mind, because when you do that, you're raising your vibration. And we've talked about this before, that there are all these different frequency levels or vibrations. And, the higher vibration you're on, the higher level you're at a higher thinking. And when you are at that higher thinking, things happen differently for you. And this is why successful people, their thinking is so different, so very different than the average person. Well, why is it? Because they're on a different frequency. They're on a much higher frequency. And because they think differently, results come differently. And they come with greater ease. And sometimes we get jealous and we think, oh, well, they got this going. And, forget that stuff. That's not going to help you. So even when we get to the point where we're upset that maybe they have something we don't have, keep in mind it's because we are not on that frequency. And if we could get ourselves up to the frequency that those successful people are on, we would have the same things coming our way too. So quit blaming others and look in the mirror and blame yourself. If you're not happy with where you are, it is nobody's fault but your own. Now, I know some people say, yes, but this happened to me, that happened to me. I understand. But you know what? I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said that nobody can make you feel bad if you don't let them. And I know there are challenges, and I know people are in situations which are really bad. We are in control of our thinking. We can control our thoughts. We can't always control what somebody else does to us, but we have control over our mind. And we can use that mind to build those pathways for the good that we desire, or we can allow that mind to keep us right where we are and continue a situation. So we have to start exercising our mind. And then we have to start moving out of our comfort zone. That's not easy. It's not easy to move out of a comfort zone. Comfort zones are designed by your mind to keep you safe. And when you go to stretch outside that comfort zone, it's like, well, that might not be safe. And so it pulls you back in. Next week, we're going to talk about what you need to do to overcome that feeling of that tug of war, where you want to do something, but your mind won't let you do it. So we'll talk about that next week. So if, I hope I didn't touch on some things that are hurtful, but if they are, please reach out, because I'd love to help you with them and love to help you overcome a situation that maybe is painful to you and that maybe you don't know how to change. I'd be more than happy to work with you and to try to get you out of that situation. So please reach out, and I'll be happy to help you with that. So what I want you to realize is we have to be able to change our behaviors. Next week, our show is going to be on just that, how to change those behaviors and how to move beyond where you are to get to where you really want to be. So hope this is helpful. And I know next week's lesson is going to be really great, because I'm going to give you step-by-step things of what to do to change your pathways and build that new model that our Buckminster Fuller said. So let me just get back to that quote one more time that he said is, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Patricia, step with your inside power. Make it a great day.